Hi, I'm Cecily Fernandez with Firsthand Media DC, and I'm delighted to have with me Tamika Felder. She is a speaker, an author, and a patient advocate. And today we're going to be talking about something very important, how to be a supportive friend to somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer. And I know this is a really important subject for you, something that you've spent a whole lifetime working on. But before we get into suggestions about specific things you can do to be a supportive friend, tell me about your experience with getting diagnosed with cancer.
Sure, Cecily, and thank you so much for even allowing me to share my story and talk about this important subject. So in 2001, as you know, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer at age 25, and it came out of nowhere. When you hear those words, you have cancer, I mean, there's nothing that prepares you for that. I feel like we're a society that is desensitized to cancer because, you know, you see so many cancer patients now in TV shows and movies, but when you are directly impacted, it's still so very jarring and surreal. So I had to get a radical hysterectomy followed by chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and I lost my fertility. But I'm thankful I didn't lose my life, but losing my fertility was like a death for me. In some ways, it still is. And there are other secondary issues that come with it, but overall, I'm doing well. I am truly a survivor.
Take us back to that moment so people get a sense of what was that like for you in that moment, especially since it wasn't something that you expected at all. It came out of nowhere. Tell me kind of your immediate feelings in that moment after you heard your doctor tell you.
Do you know, nearly 2 decades later, sometimes I can be in the car driving or watching TV or just reading a book, and all of a sudden I'll get this kind of emotion that comes over me, and it's like, I can't believe I went through that I actually survived it. When I got the diagnosis, I went in following up from a screening. I had started seeing a new doctor, and her rules were kind of, you know, you have to come back in 2 weeks. I don't have your medical history because, you know, that wasn't a big thing for me. Now it is. You know, if I switch doctors or I go someplace else, I make sure my medical history goes. But so anyway, she wanted me to come back in 2 weeks. I went back in 2 weeks, and she's going over no high blood pressure, no this, no that. And I'm like, great, you know? And I'm getting ready to leave, and she touches me by my knee, and she says, let's talk about your PAP. And I swear, it is like, you know, what you see in the movies, you know, it's an out-of-body experience. You're floating above, looking down at this scenario playing out. And she said, you know, we're going to send you for follow-up because you have cancer. And I'm thinking, she's a quack. She, you know, because remember, she's a new doctor. I'm like, I was like, this person you see now, you know, I don't have cancer. There's no way that I could have cancer because I think I know what a cancer patient is supposed to look like. I'm not emaciated at all. I look healthy. I look good. You know, I'm not sick. I don't feel bad. There is no way I have cancer. And I just didn't want to believe it. Do you know, I actually got the second opinion of 10 doctors. Now at 43 years old, I know I was looking for someone to tell me that all the other doctors got it wrong. Because I was a scared 25-year-old. You think at 25 you're grown and you know everything, but you're just a kid and you're just starting out and you're just figuring out who you are. And it was hard. It was hard. I mean, literally they had to call someone because they had to sedate me.
And so when you were experiencing that trauma, and I can imagine that wasn't just for a day, I can imagine that lasted. Do you remember during that time things that people said to you or things that people did for you that were particularly helpful and some things that maybe weren't so helpful?
So first, let me say this on the other side. Caregivers need love too. They may not be directly impacted with the cancer inside of their body, but they're directly impacted because they're all in.
Right.
They care about the person who's diagnosed with cancer. They want to save them. And so sometimes it makes them act erratically and say things that they don't want to say. My mother, who, you know, has lost a husband to cancer, you know, she's no longer with me now, but at the time she had lost siblings to cancer. So now her baby girl, you know, was diagnosed with cancer. She always wanted me to lose weight. So her very first thing was, I told you to lose weight, because she equated it to, because we hear, you know, live this healthy lifestyle, all this other stuff. You have cancer because you're overweight. Now, in my case, that wasn't it. How we know, because I was devastated. We asked my oncologist about it, all this other stuff. And I know people are going to watch this and they're like, what a horrible mother you have. But that was her way of kind of understanding it. Happened, she was processing it in her. She had to process, how did my daughter, 25 years old, get cancer? And that was her way of processing. Now, was it right? Should she had said it? No, she shouldn't have.
And we should also say that she went on to become this amazing
absolutely
caregiver to you and helped you get through
let
it.
me tell you something. I would not be here as healthy as I am if it was not for Nurse Mary Ann Felder.
If you're a friend, you don't need to feel like you have to be providing medical advice.
Exactly.
So maybe coming, if you told me that, if I was the first person you called, maybe just saying, I'm so sorry, and what can I do?
And sometimes it's not exactly what someone can do. It's about having someone who literally is there for you and making sure that you're not alone. So it's not necessarily what you say,
right?
It's the presence of someone. And sometimes you have to be open to knowing that someone just needs a note taker. Maybe ride with me to my doctor's appointment. Drive me to my doctor's appointment. I mean, there were times when, I was, as my oncologist said, he said, you're on all the good street drugs. I wasn't allowed to drive. And I couldn't drive because I would leave out of chemo and I would literally just put my head on the cool glass to cool me off, and I couldn't keep my eyes open. And so you just need someone there for you in that capacity as well. You don't want blood clots if you're having surgery or if you are not mobile a lot. So you want someone maybe to walk with you and keep you right side up, be there so that you don't topple over or things like that. Or just bring a library book or, whatever. Just be mindful and don't ask them, well, did they tell you how long you're going to live? You would be surprised how many patients come to me and they're upset because a well-meaning friend or loved one wanted to know, did they give you a time limit? Do you know how much time you have left?
Right.
Do you know if it worked yet? These are questions that we know they mean well, but they have to be mindful because it doesn't matter if it's cancer or anything else. When you go through any type of trauma or some big impact in your life, you are so emotionally just stripped of everything. And the truth is, you're worried about your own mortality.
That's why I think it seems like because I want to give people some really good takeaways. And it seems like one of the first things you should do is just ask and say, what can I do? So let's think about five suggestions for people. You have a friend, a loved one who's been diagnosed with cancer. What are 5 things that you think they should know?
The first thing is to acknowledge the cancer. I remember I had someone who kept telling me before I had even my second opinion, you don't have cancer, you don't have cancer. And I understood what they were trying to say. They were trying to be helpful, but sometimes you have to acknowledge this thing that's there.
Right.
Instead of saying, no, I know you don't have cancer, because there's no way you would know whether or not this person has cancer. Whatever the outcome is, I'll be there for you.
Right.
So that's a really easy way to be there for someone. What do you need? And not being overwhelming. We all have the tendency to kind of be that helicopter caregiver, calling constantly. Sometimes we have to wait and see and give that person air to breathe.
A little space.
Yeah, because they have to process the information that they were just given. And it is a lot. You get diagnosed with cancer, then it's, should I have surgery? Am I doing treatment in order to do those things? Will I lose my fertility? Can I harvest eggs? Bank sperm or whatever. They're all things that you need to think about. So give the person a moment to process. Third, sometimes it's not what we talked about earlier. What you say, it's just being present and then letting someone know, I'm here for you. Not necessarily by saying a word, but just by holding that person's hand. finances are hard. So, not everyone can help. But if you have the capabilities of, I'm a Real Housewives fan. So I love when Vicki Gunvalson from the Real Housewives of OC, she's like, no one brought me a casserole. So this is the time now, to bring someone a casserole, or, find out what dietary guidelines that the doctor or the nutritionist may have put them on, and make sure that they have meals, make sure that they have things that will help them. So number 4, sometimes we as patients, we get stuck because we deal with our own mortality. So there has to be a mental health check-in. And so you don't want to say, how's your mental health doing? Say, are you interested in talking to someone? Maybe finding resources for finances. If they're young adults, there are lots of, things out there for young adults who have cancer. If someone's losing their fertility, maybe, a specialist for that. Is there a cancer support group that is specific for people of color, specific for people who are married, specific for people who have children? There are things out there. And so while the patient is in their head with all this other information, figure out how you as a friend and caregiver can be resourceful. So maybe it's just literally saying, you know what, on my own time, I'm not going to bother this person, but I'm going to take some of my own time and I'm going to research some resources for that person, and don't overwhelm them.
And just to ask too, to say, you want me to look into that for you? I'd be happy to, see what I can find out.
And the most important, just love them. Just love them and be there for them, because they're scared. Even the toughest person. I remember people used to ask me, are you okay, Tamika? And I say, yep, I'm okay. Because I knew that if I said I wasn't okay, everything around me would crumble and fall. And you know what? The truth was, I was not okay. Cancer is a cancer. Like, it comes in and it infects and it just robs you of so much. But I want to be an example and show people that there is life beyond cancer. And it doesn't mean that I have good days every single day. The difference with me is I am very intentional about consistently picking up myself when I'm having a bad day. I lean on my tribe. Thank you for being one of those people who allows me to vent and say my fears, what I'm scared of, what I want. At 43 years old, I am going to keep going after my dreams till I can't anymore. For me, there's no more, you have to do this by this date. Right. Because prior to cancer, I had all these, big lofty goals by this age, this by that age, this by this. That's out the window for me. It's about living in this moment right now.
And I know that, as you can see, Tamika is very inspiring. And a lot of these messages, as you mentioned, can be found in her amazing book. And this is something that would be a perfect thing to do.
A perfect gift.
For somebody who is maybe diagnosed with cancer or maybe not, because this has a lot of great messages for overcoming challenges for anybody. So tell people how they can get a hold of this book and how they can get more information.
Sure. They can go on Amazon. The book is there, but they can also go on my website, seriouslytamika.com.
Okay, great. Well, Tamika, always love seeing you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for doing this. And please check back on the Facebook page, Firsthand Media DC, and also subscribe to YouTube. Thanks so much.